At the outset, I thank Vivekananda Kendra, Kanyakumari, and Vivekananda Prabodhini, Mumbai, for giving me an opportunity to speak on the topic of my choice on the occasion of 75th Independence Year of India. I thank Manali Joshi for organizing this series of expert talks. I hope it will not be inappropriate to start my talk with a personal note. I dedicate this lecture to my father, Professor S.G. Malche, who was reputed Marathi scholar, critic, and Marathi writer, whose birth centenary is celebrated this year. We are completing his birth centenary on 24th of September. I believe that it is due to him, who was a scholar and researcher himself, that I could grasp and imbibe tenets of research. Very often, people ask the librarians, what do you do? They do not have any idea. And again, what is library science? They hardly have any idea about research work in library and information science and the work done in this field. Hence, I have chosen this topic, research in library and information science. Though I started PhD guidance technically from 2011 and 2012 onwards, after the coursework on research methodology and other procedures, I almost started my guidance work after my retirement, that is from 2014 onwards. I have guided 6 students and now I am guiding my 7th student who has already submitted her synopsis. My talk is based on my experience as a guide and head of SHPT School of Library Science, Mumbai, where I was teaching and also I was librarian, with some glaring examples from other universities in Maharashtra. Those I will be taking, but mainly I will be dealing with whatever guidance I have given and the topics that are covered in SHPT School of Library Science and also in Mumbai University, Department of Library Science. Now, some background. Being a blend of theory and practice, I have called library and information science as LIS throughout. So, LIS is developed as a discipline of scientific inquiry and professional practice. Information and communication technologies developed from 1980s onwards gave a different turn to this discipline. Actually, the first course in LIS in the world dates back to 1886-87, but the first course in LIS in India dates back to 1911. So, when W.A. Borden started first training program under the patronage of Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad II of Baroda. Thus, LIS discipline in India is 111 years old. So it had its humble beginning in 1911 at Baroda. It is blend of theory and practice. Similarly, it is multidisciplinary in nature, just as management science is there. And it is pertinent to note that as a faculty, LIS was earlier included under arts or even later on under social sciences. In some of the universities, it was included under science faculty, but now it comes under multidisciplinary studies. And this itself speaks about the nature of the research that is done later on in this field. In 1957, the first PhD in library science came up, and it was at University of Delhi. The first PhD in library, the credit of this formal training or formal setting up of doctoral program in LIS goes undeniably to Dr. S.R. Ranganathan, father of Indian library science. Unlike other disciplines, it is only 64 years old in India, that we have to keep in mind. This first PhD was done in 1957 on faceted classification of agriculture by Dr. D.B. Krishna Rao under the guidance of Dr. Ranganathan. Today, there are 130 plus universities and other institutions like NISCARE offering PhD in LIS. A 1984 issue of Library Trends was devoted to research in library science, or even at that time they said research in librarianship, and it reviewed research as related to history of library and information science, economics of libraries, then political science, sociology of information use, psychology of information use, organization theory, public administration, and operations research. This work thus provided categorization of library research. And in Library Trends, Mary Jo Lynch has written an article where she has categorized LIS research. Now, these categories are not mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, of course, but these are, it is worth knowing what are these categories. These are one, practical research, which deals with problem solving, bibliographical research, which deals with recording of thoughts of other people, and then working on with the laws in bibliometrics. Then scholarly research, it often conducts systematic collection, organization, and analysis of data. But nowadays we say that all the research is scholarly research. So I'm saying the categorization is not that to be tightly taken. Then scientific research, here discovery of new knowledge is done. So it is worth seeing what categorization was done in 1984. Now, when you see the areas in research, there is variety of topics that are chosen by people. What are these topics? One is history and types of libraries. Let us take some of the examples also when we see the variety in topics. One is evaluation of libraries. For example, recently, Dr. Urmila Jagtap has worked on High Court libraries under the guidance of Dr. Sarika Sawant. Then there are areas in communication media also. Then stalwarts in library science and their contribution also is treated as a subject. So the works of Dr. Ranganathan, Five Laws of Library Science, which he has promoted, work of W.B. Sayers, then Dr. S.G. Mahajan. This study is done in Pune. So there are people in library science who have done very seminal work, and hence this is selected as a subject or topic of research. Then study of one library. For example, the study of Mumbai Marathi Grantha Sangralaya is done by Dr. Pradeep Karnik in Savitribai Phule Vidyapit, Pune. Then reading habits. There is a study done in Yashwantrao Savan Mukta Vidyapit on reading therapy by Dr. Radnya Bhosekar. So there is variety of topics and areas that are worth thinking. Then topics related to information also are taken up, like information retrieval, quality and authenticity of information, policy for access and preservation, data mining, then organization and retrieval of domain specific information. This was done on fungi by Dr. Shubhada Nagarkar in SHPT School of Library Science under the guidance of Professor Harsha Parekh. Then user studies are some of the main areas, and in user studies, people have checked or librarians have checked information needs and information seeking behavior. For example, Medline on CD-ROM user search behavior, that is done by Dr. Medha Joshi under guidance of Harsha Parekh, Professor Harsha Parekh again. There are ample studies on seeking information needs and information seeking behavior in almost all the areas and subjects, like chemistry, physics, B.Ed colleges. With me, there was one student, and I'm going to elaborate what she has done. It was on information needs and seeking information seeking behavior of B.Ed students in Mumbai. Then information literacy programs are conducted. So on that theory and practice, there are some studies. There is one experimental study done by Dr. Anjali Kale in SHPT School of Library Science. I'm giving her example later on again because it is experimental study. Then a different type of study, the type of study that is taken up by her. Then on copyright and intellectual property rights. For example, Purnima Joshi from Mumbai University has done on information literacy for copyright in the law libraries for law librarians. Then library organization and management is another area which is largely taken by the researchers. That is collection management, meaning implying acquisition, maintenance of the collection, or even weeding out, withdrawal of in the collection, resource sharing. One example from SHPT School of Library Sciences, disaster management of in libraries in India, done by Dr. Parul Zaveri under the guidance of Professor Harsha Parekh. Then information organization and management, knowledge management are some of the areas. Some other areas are repositories. Dr. Sarika Samant from SHPT School of Library Science, she is now assistant professor. She worked on institutional repository initiatives in India, a status report under the guidance of Dr. Sen. Then there was A.N. Joshi from Elias Department of Shivaji University, Kolhapur. She was a researcher and she worked on actual repositories. She had an idea that abroad there are some repositories which keep rare books aside, and the universities are bogged are which are not having space can come together and form a repository, actual repository. These are not institutional repositories or online repositories, but this means that there should be one place where the books, rare books, should be deposited by all the universities, so that this is a repository of rare books which are not used again and again, and that management should be taken care of by all the registrars of all the universities should come to the consensus. It was very good study. Then manuscript identification and management. On this area also, the studies have been done. Open source initiatives. Nowadays, we get research journals, research matter in open source, and you do not require any permission for it is not for use. For use, you will require permission perhaps, but you will openly get that material uh, accessed. So on that, there are studies done. Then evidence-based librarianship, which comes nearer to clinical research. People are doing research in this area. And of course, LIS education and training. New topics like MOOCs also are taken. Now, Daksha Surti, long back in 1990s, she took this library science education as a study under Dr. Professor Naidu. Now, other areas that are covered is mainly ICTs, that is electronic resources, electronic sources, e-books, digital libraries. For example, management of IT in libraries. In earlier years, that is in 1996, Dr. Bharti Sen worked on this topic under the guidance of Dr. S.R. Ganpule. Now, bibliometrics is a unique contribution of LIS to research. The study, it is a study of citations and application of scientometric laws to them. Now, this is very interesting, and some examples here are Dr. B.S. Kademani has worked on scientific profiles, scientometric profiles of Nobel laureates like Chandrasekhar, C.V. Raman, and even institutional profiles that he has taken out like TIFR and TISS. These are in bibliometric laws which are used in statistics, that these are applied to the citation patterns, or even the content analysis is done under these studies. In SHPT School of Library Science in Mumbai, under SNDT University, Shakuntala Nigot has worked on citation analysis of PhD thesis of two universities in Maharashtra, that is SNDT Women's University and Mumbai University, under the guidance of Shubhada Nagarkar. So there are a number of areas which are looked into by the researchers. Now, these are my students who have already done research, and I'm elaborating some of these examples. Dr. Madhura Devdhar, she worked on need and impact of continuing education programs on allied professionals, a study of university and college libraries in Mumbai in 2017. Sujata Kamble worked on, as I just now I mentioned, she worked on information seeking behavior of B.Ed students in Mumbai city. Neeta Gundawar worked on a survey of green libraries in India. Dr. Anjali Bandivdekar worked on faculty librarian relations in the context of role efficacy of librarians in management institutes in Mumbai, 2019. Dr. Meghana Sanjeeva, she worked on scholarly communication process. It was a study of research institutes in Mumbai. And at present, Nidhi Rakshikar is working on human orientation in libraries. The research is ongoing. Now, there is many a times I have found that there is some novelty in the topics chosen either, or methodologies, and librarians have tried from that point of view or angle. For example, topics like green libraries in India, scholarly communication process turned out to be an interesting studies. Study on continuing education programs also was referred to quite often by other discipline scholars, and she has used Kirkpatrick model for evaluation, which is used in management for evaluation of continuing education programs like seminars, workshops, etc., or refresher courses, etc. Then study on information seeking behavior laid stress on behavior part, because normally earlier studies, there are ample studies on information seeking behavior in this LIS field. However, we have found that it is behavior. So you should find out the reactions of the students after getting the material, after getting the information, and how they react. Are they happy? Are they sad? And she has tried to find out whether in uh, closed access libraries, they get the material, and what is their behavior in closed access library, and what is the behavior of the students in open access libraries, and whether they take help of librarians and library staff initially or later on. The study is really very interesting because we have stressed on behavior part of it. Then study of faculty librarian relations used role efficacy scale promoted by or devised by Uday Parikh, the expert in management area. Study on scholarly communication process brought forth, she has done a framework to augment research support services in the libraries of research institutes. some topics at University of Mumbai that are that have been tackled. First is Grey Literature by Dr. Pratibha Gokhale. Grey literature means the literature which is not easily available. Like there are pamphlets and booklets, and there are brochures. So such material, though important, is not caught hold of or not accessible to the researchers. She has worked on grey literature. Then web content management for library and information science, a study. This has been done by Dr. Dhanashri Date under Dr. Pratibha Gokhale in 2007. Then development of a methodology for domain ontology, an application in the area of accelerated driven system in nuclear physics. Now see the variety and interdisciplinarity here. Again, a study in 2008. Then electronic information sources in home science with special reference to foods and nutrition, a study in 2010. Dr. Sachin Vaidya did this study under Dr. Pratibha Gokhale. Librarians awareness and user education initiatives regarding copyright law. This has been submitted to Mumbai University by Dr. Purnima Joshi. Guide was Dr. Medha Joshi. Now, this was regarding topic selection. Now, about literature review. Literature review has been the strength of all the librarians. And I have found that the literature review of all the librarians has been exhaustive because they are taught the ways to access information, and hence for their studies they can do that very well. Another thing is Shodhaganga, the reservoir or Shodhaganga is the here you will find it is the reservoir of thesis. There are 3 lakh 18,000 theses available from 476 universities. So they are this is devised by InflipNet, and these theses are available in open access. So you can draw on these theses, and our librarians are aware about Shodhaganga by InflipNet. They are also aware about Shodhagangotri, that is abstracts of proposed research topics, because that will help in selection of topic and the duplication of topics is avoided. So these are abstracts of the research topics that are submitted to the universities so that duplication is avoided. Then there are portals like Vidwan. This is again the portal by InflipNet, e-learning portal for research scholars. And this is the, you have to prepare your profile on this. Now, some of the studies which I referred to, I would like to explain about it. Dr. Madhura Devdar, she aimed to study the need and impact of continuing education programs on LIS professionals of colleges in Mumbai. The objective of this thesis was to identify the continuing education program needs of the professionals. So she found out the needs of the professionals working in academic libraries. She also studied CEP attendance, and she evaluated impact of this attendance on the respondents with the model which I have, Kirkpatrick model, which I specified just now some time ago. Then she tried to find out the benefits experienced by the LIS professionals after attending CEPs. Then Dr. Sujata Kamble tried to assess information seeking behavior and information needs of B.Ed students in Mumbai. This study attempted to determine information needs of student teachers in B.Ed colleges and how far they are fulfilled. She analyzed information seeking behavior, as I mentioned just now, and their awareness about library resources, how far they are aware. Then she also found out teaching methods used by the teachers. This was very interesting. What are the teaching methods used by the teachers training programs, and how Students' information seeking behavior is affected by these methods. So she tried to link these with the methods used by the teachers. Then she tried to ascertain whether students have any formal instructions regarding library use of formal training for searching library resources. And also she tried to find out the need of librarians and library staff felt by B.Ed students in information seeking. Though it was a survey with questionnaire, she used observation as a research tool, which is again very important, which is used many a times in qualitative research, with the objective of observing the behavior of the students in the library. She took photographs and tried to identify the reaction of the students after in information search, and compared the students' behavior in closed access and open access libraries. She used emojis for data analysis. Dr. Anjali Bandivdekar explored faculty librarian relationships in the context of role efficacy of librarians in management institutes of Mumbai on the basis of four dimensions, that is, awareness, whether they are aware about their own relationship with the faculty, about communication, their interaction with the faculty, and collaboration. She found that the overall relationship between faculty and the librarians were very positive, and she has used a role efficacy scale of Uday Parikh, as I mentioned earlier. Identifying the central role of libraries in scholarly communication, Dr. Meghana Sanjeeva has traced the changing needs of researchers in research institutes of Mumbai, and she also outlined the history of scholarly communication process, pinpointing the changes in scholarly communication due to ICTs. Documenting the changing role of library and librarian in current scholarly communication process in research institutes in Mumbai, she further investigated the new skills and competencies required by LIS professionals in changing circumstances, and developed a framework to augment these skills and augment the research support services extended by libraries for the to augment the scholarly communication process. She found that researchers first use specific electronic resources for discovery of scholarly content, and e-journals and electronic databases remain their first choice to search the information. However, they do not go into e-books. E-books is not their preference. Similarly, conferences remain to be the first choice for in process communication. This is very interesting. More and more researchers were engaging themselves in collaborative research. Again, different trend in scholarly communication. Many of the institutes did not have publication policies. This was again a lacuna with them. And role of librarians as facilitators and gatekeepers was accepted uh, uh, by the researchers there in Research Institute. Dr. Neeta Gundawar surveyed green academic libraries in India. They seek to reduce. What are green libraries? Green libraries, they seek to reduce the use of water and energy by designing the building to maximize the use of natural and renewable resources. They also integrate actual plants into the building design, preferably with drought resistant and native vegetation. There are different aspects for libraries to go green. Library buildings can be built as green buildings, or they can be converted later on into green buildings. That also how that can be done, she has studied well. And green buildings are designed to have a longer life, and they help conserve natural resources like water while consuming minimal power and energy. So it is also known as sustainable library or sustainable buildings and eco-friendly library. It is built with the environmental concern in mind. Dr. Neeta has assessed various standards of green buildings like Griha, Skonul, and other standards, and have assessed the libraries, so-called so-called academic libraries, which say that they are green libraries. So she has reviewed the situation. She has sent them questionnaire, and she assessed whether in which aspect which libraries excel, and overall which are the libraries that are very good and can be called as green libraries. She tried to prepare a list of criteria on the basis of which you can assess a library whether it is green library and how many aspects are there. If these many aspects are there, can it be called as green library? And then she has given the examples of many libraries, 2 3 libraries in each aspect, whether in the case of electrical savings or water saving, from what point of view they are good, and how many libraries are overall considering this greenness of libraries, how many librarians are working towards uh, making the public literate regarding this greenness. This being a survey and first of its kind, it touched upon the status and condition and chief practices, problems, and issues regarding green and eco friendly university libraries in India. According to the researcher, there is a need to go in depth in this topic by practicing further research in this area. So she has identified this as further research area to be considered. Dr. Manisha Kute explored the information needs of managers in RCF, because she was working in RCF, managers and engineers in RCF, and suggested measures to fulfill their needs. Uh, these libraries, which are at Turbhe, Third, and one other. In University of Mumbai, we have seen what are the topics. Then, as far as literature review is concerned, librarians are strong in this area. This also we have seen. eShoda Sindhu is a consortia of higher education, e-resources which include databases with archives, e-archives, including e-books, e-journals, and all scholarly content is available in open access through subject portals and gateways. It also gives, that is, Shodha Gangotri gives access to JSTOR archives, JGate Plus, Scopus, and Web of Science, where researchers can search the material, and databases like NList and INDEST are now merged into eShoda Sindhu. Now, librarians are aware about this service, and in their information literacy programs they normally include this. So it's no wonder that for their own research they use this part. In Shodhaganga, these are efforts of InflibNet in establishing electronic thesis and dissertation repository, which is also very useful, and we have seen that it also enables students to submit their own PhD thesis in this repository. Shodha Gangotri also we have seen, they are abstracts of proposed research topics, which helps in the selection of topic and avoids duplication. Now, methodologies that are used by these researchers in LIS. Methodologies used are more, they use quantitative research, and survey method is the most popular, as pointed out by Busha and Harter years ago. Still, survey method is very popular and it is popularly used. However, there are also mixed methodologies which are adopted recently, mixing quantitative as well as qualitative techniques. Dr. Durga Murari from SHPT School of Library Science, she is deputy librarian at our Pune library. She has adopted qualitative techniques for data collection. She prepared transcripts of in depth interviews of women entrepreneurs in her research on information needs analysis and information seeking behavior of women entrepreneurs, which the study was submitted in 2008 under Professor Harsha Parekh. She used transcripts to document these in depth interviews. Now, experimental studies are very rare, but they are there. Dr. Anjali Kale, she worked on developing information literacy skills in student teachers in 2014. Under Dr. Sen, she has worked, and it is really a very different study. Her main aim was to assess information literacy skills of student teachers in B.Ed colleges and enhance their information literacy skills through designing information literacy instruction. There were two groups of students. Experimental group was given instruction and control group was not given the instruction under information literacy program. So information literacy modules were developed, and it was found that these modules were effective in enhancing information literacy skills of student teachers. Usage of these skills in research projects was assessed using a tool NJIT that is used in New Jersey, NJIT assessment tool, and it was found that only a small percentage of student teachers were able to make use of these skills learned, as transfer of skills is also dependent on other factors like which are cognitive, environmental, social, and cultural. Now, bibliometric studies, which we touched upon just some time ago, these are very popular in universities in Karnataka and also at Aurangabad, Baba Saheb Ambedkar, Marathwada University. There in LIS department, many of the students have done research under Dr. Shashankha Sonavane, and these are bibliometric studies. We also took the example earlier of Dr. Kademani, who has worked on in this area. Uh, in SNDT, Shakuntala Nigot worked on citation analysis of PhD thesis of two universities. This also we have referred to the title. These two universities again we mentioned. The study, the time period taken for the study is from 1995 to 2014. She conducted quantitative analysis of journals and book citations, both journal and book citations, to find out areas of research in teacher education and also the sources used by these researchers. She analyzed the cited references with bibliometric techniques and the laws and tried to find out the authorship pattern, use of open access, and interdisciplinary journals. Some management techniques are used by other researchers. For example, Dr. S. Sengupta from Savitribai Phule Pune University used Delphi method, which is a process used to derive at a group opinion or decision. One minute. Yeah. uh, Delphi method, which is process you to used which is used to arrive at a group opinion or decision by surveying a panel of experts. Panel of experts is called again and again to think on a particular topic. Their opinions are taken, and some rounds are taken telling the panel of experts what other experts think about the same. In the second round, in the third round, some more details are made out or are exposed, and then uh, it is this study looks into the opinions, how the panel of experts can give opinions of different kinds and how these opinions change over the time, and what is the general opinion or what is the consensus, whether you can arrive at the consensus. This is a technique of consensus of opinion which is used to find out, to predict future trends. She worked on library and information science education in India in the 1990s under the guidance of Professor Rizwadkar. She applied this technique for predicting trends in library education. It is found that case studies are rarely taken up by LIS researchers for PhD. Now, good practices. Center for Publication Ethics was established in 2017 at Savitribai Phule Pune University for enhancing research integrity. This is this can be commonly applied to all the disciplines, but this has helped librarians because librarians have been conducting information literacy programs and they have been helping all the researchers as far as publication ethics is concerned. So what is copyright, what is right and what is wrong, what can be said to be plagiarism, to define plagiarism, they have worked on it, and that is why they also know that care list, which is a list of peer reviewed journals, it this list in every subject it gets published every quarter. So they guide the researchers as to which are the peer reviewed journals in their areas, because nowadays it is mandatory to publish in peer reviewed journals. So they are the guides. Then, according to CAS, to fulfill the API criteria, that is, they have to face CAS meeting. So, from fourth to fifth stage of Career Advancement Scheme or CAS, PhD has become compulsory even for the librarians. So, librarians are doing PhD. More and more librarians are going in for the PhD. And the situation is that there are less guides, less seats in the universities. This is the problem faced by them. Librarians who conduct information literacy programs, they explain the faculty about plagiarism, salami slicing, self-plagiarism, because many years ago, we were not aware of what is self-plagiarism. Even if I use the same paragraph at four places, I will have to give the reference or citation of my own, which is known as self citation. So, whether you are giving that, otherwise, it will be self plagiarism. Then the same research cannot be sliced and sent to all the different parties or hey different institutions for as a specimen of research or even publications for journals, different journals. It should not be done. That is called salami slicing. You are doing the same research in different manner, you are presenting it. It is wrong, ethically wrong. Then these librarians submit their research papers in researchgate, academia.edu, and they prepare their profiles in Google Scholar, Orchid, and Vidwan. Vidwan, again, as we have seen, here you can prepare this is done by Inflibnet. Here you can prepare your scholarly profile and you can get your H index. This is again very, very important. Uh, so getting their H index generated is also done, and which is required for CAS nowadays, which will be helpful for CAS. So the librarians help the faculty and they themselves have enrolled. I have seen many of them. They have given profiles to Google Scholar and automatically on the basis of their references, citations, their own references. They how many people are using your material, or how many people have given your citation of your work, that is identified, and then your H index is recognized. So LIS researchers, they submit their papers to repositories. These are repositories, academia.edu, researchgate, etc., and create their profiles to get H index of their contribution. H index is a metric to assess the entire body of scholarly output of an author or a researcher. I will show you the how the output comes, and not intended for specific time frame. These are visibility techniques followed by LIS researchers. We can give promising note as far as librarians are concerned in this area, because they have mastered the ways to make their contribution visible through various online platforms, which are mentioned just now. Uh, with one, the e-learning portal created by InflipNet, wherein researchers enter their profile. Many of the LIS professionals have built their web presence and are including visibility techniques in the information literacy programs of their own institution. They're also publishing their research articles in peer-reviewed journals specified by care list, published by Center of Publication Ethics, which is mandatory now for PhD researchers. Now, these are some of the examples of their profiles of some of the faculty and uh, some research students of mine. Madhura Devdar. Now, these are the citations. Then there is H index since 2016. So 18, 19, 20, 21. You can see the references, or you can track how many times her work is referred to in the peer-reviewed journal articles. Next articles. Hmm. This is the profile of Dr. Meghana Sanjeeva. After she has done her PhD and written the papers, her papers are evaluated like this. There are 14 citations since 2016. H index is 2, and they are giving the papers year cited by how many people. You will get your H index done in this way in Google Scholar. Now, this is Dr. Sarika Samant, faculty from SHPT School of Library Science. She has been writing in peer-reviewed journals for a very long time, and see her H index. It is really commendable. So, this is very, very important that your visibility as a researcher should be there. And in this area, librarians have really won their own contribution. They have given their contribution, and they have really done good work. Let us see further. Now, for curbing the malpractices, there has to be some quality checking and piracy guard. Internationally, there are many uh, mm, committees on publication ethics, like COPE and other committees. And similarly, Dr. Bhushan Patwardhan, who was on one of the committees, he became aware about the malpractices in research, and he found that even in India this is happening. The piracy is going on, and he decided to work towards it. And then a center was established. Before that, let us see other things. InflipNet gives Urkun software for plagiarism checking to the universities who have signed the MOU for submitting their thesis. So this software is used, and the piracy cases are assessed. So how much percentage of copyright हे translation is there, or copy piracy checking, and this piracy checking can be done, and the certificate nowadays is mandatory, which is given by university librarians. So here the role of librarians becomes very important, and hence they can work very positively even in this area as far as their own research is concerned. When we were at MLISC, we had a dissertation many years ago, in 1980s. We had a dissertation almost equivalent to PhD thesis, but little bit less uh, research could be, like for example, bibliographies can be taken up as a research, or a case study or action research can be taken for research. But we used to question our teachers, sir, why, Professor Marshall used to say, why you are made to do the research, this small research for master's degree. It is because you are guiding the researchers, librarians are guiding the researchers, and hence when you practice what you preach, it is better understood. So from this point of view, role of librarians become really important, and hence they themselves follow the good practices and curb the malpractices, or try to give check on the piracy that is happening in research area. Now the challenges before the researchers in LIS field. One is there are galloping changes in technology. Technology is changing every day, every minute, and that is why, as it is said, you have to, in order to walk with the world, you have to run. So that is what is going on, and that is why you get fast outdated. Your study also gets fast outdated. I'll tell you my example. I was working on solo librarians in Mumbai. That was my topic of research, and I was doing that under Professor Harsha Parekh as my guide. By the time I took 6 years to complete, by the time I completed the work on solo librarians, and I wanted to prepare a directory of solo librarians, but by the time I completed the research, many of the solo librarians who are working single-handedly in their institutions, they became non-solo librarians. Either they got assistant librarian, or they left the job and went at other places where other people were there with them, so they became non-solo librarians. And this can happen when the changes in the society are very fast. Then LIS field is changing very fast. Then access to thesis, many of the thesis is very difficult, as some of the universities have not signed the MOU. For example, Mumbai University theses are not available um, open access, so it is very difficult for the students to find out the thesis of some universities who have not signed MOU, and sometimes it is difficult to go to the libraries also. In the libraries also, they are not available. Then getting enrollment data of the students is difficult in all the universities, many of the universities, because it is not up to date, and that is a problem for sample selection. How would you have a very scientific sample? It is very difficult. Then absence of exhaustive list and library directories. For example, academic libraries, college libraries, identifying them becomes difficult. So there is this is again problem for sample selection. At many places, librarian is not appointed, and that is why there is delay in filling the questionnaires. And that is why these people say that librarian is not there. So you wait, either, or the other persons are not that serious in filling up the questionnaires and sending them in time. This is again a barrier for the researcher in library science. Delay in filling and returning a questionnaires due to heavy administrative responsibilities. For example, university librarians are really having heavy administrative responsibilities, and hence many a times our students do not get the material or the questionnaire filled fast, and then it takes time for them. These are some of the challenges. Now, strengths and limitation of LIS research. One is heterogeneity in selected topics, which we have seen, variety in the topics that are selected. Then interdisciplinary domains are explored. This again I found to be the strength, because uh, we have more cultural, psychological aspects which we touch upon, and they are infused in spite of the stress on ICTs related areas. New themes as well as new research methods are being explored by all these librarians, because library science is a very practically oriented science. So it is useful for practical research, a practical practice also. For example, the study, bibliometric studies, are used to find out which journals should be subscribed to, which journals or which authors should be purchased, because which are the popular or which are the authors which are most cited. So all these things have effect on the library practice, and library practice gets strengthened. So the relationship between the theory and practice gets established after librarians do research. And I have found that they are ready, the students are ready to explore new methods and emphasize mixed methodologies, because they also want qualitative as well as quantitative research. Libraries being the main source of knowledge, and libraries being uh, uh, librarians being the custodians as well as torchbearers of knowledge, they have the greatest advantage of having reservoir of knowledge near them, and also they have key of information which is always there with them. Being well versed in all these techniques to access knowledge and information, they are the pathfinders, and their help is taken by all the researchers. However, there are some limitations, like the limitation of survey method. And survey method is very popular in library science. It is said that it is touch and go method, because in survey can be done initially. If nobody has touched upon that topic, then that initial survey has not been undertaken. So you get the just a touch into that topic. Further studies need to be done. So this is a limitation of it, is touch and go method. So it has got inbuilt limitation. So when you are using survey tools of conducting survey, you have to supplement it with qualitative research, like you can use observation, and also qualitative techniques can be used, which are used by the librarians nowadays. The greatest criticism, harsh criticism we are facing is the criticism on absence of theorization. However, as I'm thinking, our research is only 64 years, 65 years old. So there is still time to evolve, experiment, and that is what is done by researchers, and they should more and more do. So times are changing, and the librarians are seen experimenting in research. So as pathfinders now, they can also work as take up the path breaking role in research, and as they are well equipped in conducting research in a scientific manner. With this note, I end my presentation and thank you for your patient listening. Thanks a lot.